Thank you everyone for tuning in today. As Alan mentioned, my name is Joel Van Essen. I'm a second year student here at Fuqua and part of the Fintech Club Cabinet. We're really excited to bring you some great panelists today for this session that I think will really build on a lot of the themes that you've heard thus far. Just kind of logistically starting off, I'll give a brief bio on our panelists. We have some broader questions, and then as you've been doing, if we have time for Q&A, feel free to submit anything in the bottom there. And if we have time, I'll try to loop back around and get to it. So just starting off, our first panelist today is Casper Sorensen. Casper is currently the Vice President of Customer Experience, IT, Enterprise Applications, and Architecture at Coinbase. Prior to Coinbase, he held a number of senior management positions at Compass, Amazon, and Capital One. Casper has also worked in management consulting at the World Bank Group. He is a Fuqua grad and also has a degree in political science from the University of Aarhus. And pardon me if I mispronounced the university name there. But thanks for joining us, Casper. Our second panelist will be Jim Del Favero, who is the Chief Product Officer at Personal Capital, which was actually my former employer, although Jim and I were in different offices, so we didn't get to interact too frequently. But I've heard Jim speak before, and there's a lot of exciting things going on at Personal Capital, so we're thankful to have you here. Jim started his career at Intuit and rapidly climbed the ranks in tech support and running voice of the customer. He later led Quicken and Quicken Online as group product manager. He has a degree in political science from UC San Diego. And Jim started up with Personal Capital in 2012, which was when the company was actually founded. And lastly, here we have Hector Elizondo. Hector is also a Fuqua grad, class of 2018. Originally from Mexico, Hector has worked over 10 years in strategic sourcing and planning experience. Before Fuqua, he worked for Cemex, a Mexican-based building materials company. He currently leads the source-to-pay integration for mergers and acquisitions at PayPal. So thank you for all of our panelists for joining us today. I thought I'd kick it off with just a question that all you could probably touch on, and it's a fairly broad question. And maybe we just go in order of introductions there. But what are some of the big disruptions that you see in the industries that you work in that FinTech are driving? And specifically at your firms, how are your companies driving that disruption?
Thanks, Joel, and thanks for the introduction. And you did great on pronouncing the university, by the way. So thanks for that. So we want to go to a half hour, so I want to be very mindful of that. Obviously, working for a company that's focused on crypto, I'm incredibly excited about blockchain as a technology. In my career, I have not come across anything I think has as transformational as blockchain since the internet. And I think Ben Horowitz has kind of summed this up really well. He visited Coinbase offices in San Francisco just before the lockdown, and he talked about the early 90s when he was working at Netscape, and he talked about how there were still a lot, back in the early 90s, nobody had any idea what we were going to use the internet for. So he gave two examples. He said, there was a lot of pushback because the internet was not secure. So what Netscape did was invent the secure socket layers. So in order to kind of get around that constraint, they invented around it. The other example he gave was that there was no kind of persistent states when you're using a browser, which meant that if you were trying to do shopping, put something in the cart and then went to another page, that item would not stay in the shopping cart. So they invented cookies. And the point I'm trying to make is that we're so early in the days of blockchain and crypto, and there's so much invention that has to happen in order for us to kind of get to the end state. But that's also what makes me incredibly excited about the opportunity. And give you one quick example, just something like tokenization of assets, taking assets, tokenizing them, and essentially creating digital representations of physical assets we're just in the very, very early stages of that, and incredibly excited about what that can lead to in the future. So how does that relate to Coinbase? Obviously, we are a company that focuses on crypto, and I think the potential to really drive change across the globe in regards to providing access and providing a more open financial system for the world is something that's incredibly energizing to me and very exciting.
Thank you for that. And Jim, you mind if I pass word to you with the same question there?
Yeah. So I'm gonna double down on blockchain. You know, having built personal capital from the get-go and dealing with the #1 problem in bringing a new direct-to-consumer financial technology company to market, it's the antiquated, busted-ass systems that every major financial institution is built on. And, you know, delivering a customer experience where your #1 goal is to hide all of those things from the end user, whether it's your custodian and their, you know, AML rules and lack of APIs or requiring DocuSign for things, whether it's money transmission rules, you know, how much of a wire transfer can you do? You know, a lot of these things are built on technology that's 30, 40 years old, and you can't deliver a modern user experience. And blockchain eventually can solve all those things. You know, if you think about technology disruption in fintech, I think it's really the only true technology disruptor in fintech today. Everything else is it's either a business model innovation. You know, Robinhood's a business model innovation. You know, we'll do free trading because we'll find a way to make money elsewhere. Plaid has similar technology to Yodlee and had a 10x valuation of Yodlee because it was a business model innovation where instead of selling to large financial institutions, they connected with fintechs who are willing to pay a premium to accelerate money movement. And or it's a customer acquisition model like Credit Karma. It's free credit reports. Okay, we're going to get 30, 40, 50 million customers by providing something for free and then selling something. None of those are technology disruptors at all. I think blockchain is really the only one.
Thanks for that. And Hector?
Sure. Thank you for the introduction. Very appreciated. Very happy to be here. So I'm going to focus myself on the industry of online payments and how has that, impacted during the pandemic, and how has PayPal done, their share on the work. So no surprise, during the pandemic period, over 20% of frequency online shopping has been increasing. In the very beginning, everybody wanted, to make sure that they had their products, readily available, toilet paper, Cheez-Its, snacks, you name it. And PayPal has been very proactive in making sure that the customer experience in online payments is to the best of their abilities possible, through two things: financing purchases through PayPal credit option, and working very closely with the partner merchants to improve their shopping experience and decrease the shopping cart conversion rate. So elaborating a little bit more on the PayPal credit solution, we have done research, and given the pandemic times, there have been, a necessity of cash more than ever, and offering the solution to merchants to provide the PayPal credit solution where they can purchase something now and do installments to pay later has shown increase in 50% of overall purchases. The second thing that we have been doing is helping all of our online merchants to improve their customer experience. And we have done this through various ways. One of them have been adding payment options, adding the payment PayPal button, express checkout through all of your web pages, using the Venmo solution as a mean of payment, and offer proactive cart abandonment through store cash. I can elaborate a little bit on these. So the experience of doing the shopping cart experience when they see something and they want to buy it. Believe it or not, 23% of individuals, when they're about to do the shopping cart experience, decide to abandon their purchase. Why? Because our phone is here, and we're about to do the purchase, but our wallet is over there. And we're kind of lazy. We don't want to go and like grab our credit card and put the credit card number and make the purchase. That being said, that's where the PayPal Buy Now button comes into place. That also brings, like the solution in terms of like being super reliable and having this brand trustability, that whenever they just click the express checkout button, they only have to put their ID and their password, and all of the information is automatically converted to the online website, and they can make their purchase like way easier. Another thing that we're doing right now to improve this shopping cart experience is to offer Venmo as one of the solutions. So no surprise, Venmo right now is very popular. About 31% of Venmo users are holding a balance in their Venmo account, and 65% of that balance is being used for online shopping. So us having worked very closely with all of our merchants and offering the Venmo button solution as well has provided an incredible increase in the shopping experience for all of our retailers. And last but not least, the store cash option. So with machine learning and predictability of our customer database, we have been able to determine certain purchasing patterns that we can target our customers and say, oh, we've seen that you usually buy stuff from this online retail store. Right now, we have unlocked a $5 credit, for example, that you can use on this store, and it is going to expire in a certain period of time. That, believe it or not, prompts 40% of people to go into the website and use that $5 credit to purchase something. Among other things that we have been doing right now is the liberation of the brand new QR code. So whenever you are at a physical establishment and you have to pay something, some merchants have already incorporated the ability of using a PayPal QR code so that you just use, again, like your phone. You don't have to touch cash. You don't have to give them like a credit card. You don't have to worry about, washing your hands and whatnot, and simply scan the QR code that the merchant is giving you, and the transaction is completed. So yeah, to wrap up, all of these options have been incorporated in these present times to help address all of these issues that we have been seeing in the shopping experience.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And this next question, I want to change gears slightly and just open it up to any of the panelists who'd like to weigh in regarding fintech as a broad category, and essentially a lot of the companies that are traditionally going to be coming to an MBA program to recruit are large, established financial service providers in one way or another. And my question is, are these big financial institutions embracing fintech, or are they resisting the disruption that a lot of these smaller startup companies are bringing? Are they looking, and kind of a similar question along the lines of that, are they looking to grow fintech within their organization, or doing it more through acquisition of startups and people that have, maybe more kind of boots on the ground, figuring out what's important right now?
So I can provide my perspective. It's probably not the answer that you want, but it's the the answer you're going to get. I think the premise of the question is slightly off. I prefer not to be competitor focused or focused on what other folks in industries are doing. I like to kind of focus most of my energy on our customers, and then work backwards from the customers in terms of what we built. And I think for anyone who's looking at joining a financial services company, whether it's financial services 1.0 or a fintech company, look at the company, look at the mission, look at the culture, look at the products, and if it's something that energizes you, go for it. If it's something that does not energize you, then it's probably not the right fit for you. And you can find those roles in traditional financial services, and you can find them in fintech as well. So I think it's a very personal decision, and the attributes that kind of inform that decision are very personal.
Yeah, I'll weigh in here, having done the whole fintech from start to exit. It's not for everyone, to be honest. It's a tough space to operate in. If you think about like exit multiples for an actual technology company or software company, they're going to be a lot larger. You know, if you get acquired by, you know, a traditional Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 technology company, they're going to pay 15x, 20x for whatever your software and your experience is. Financial institutions like always try to narrow in on like 8 times revenue is kind of what they want to pay, and they don't want to pay more than that. And then it's also, if you're in a fintech that's selling into financial institutions, that's like a really hard, long sales cycle. So you have to think about where you are and what you want to do. You know, we went direct to consumer. Direct to consumer is really freaking hard. You have to build a brand. You have to figure out how you're going to acquire users. You have to figure out what your model is. How are you going to make money? What's the LTV of your users? And you're battling companies that spend 10, 20, 30, 40x what you do. Like, we're never going to outspend Fidelity or JP Morgan on marketing. So we have to figure out what's our model, what's our value proposition, who's our target customer, how we're going to go after them. And it's really not easy. And then when you're in the B2B space, you know, you're selling your technology solution to a large financial institution, and having met with a number of these companies over the past 11 years, you know, they think that they're so big they can do anything. And I've flat out been told by large financial institutions, you know, well, you know, we could buy you, but we're also 100% confident we can build this ourselves, and it'll take us 2 years. And my answer is, you can't build it yourselves because you don't have the focus, and you've got internal stuff you have to deal with, and you'll never build what we built because you just can't do it in a large company. So when you kind of take a look at fintech, you know, versus traditional financial institutions, you have to think about what kind of impact you can make and what makes you happy. Like, having done a big company like Intuit and spent a lot of time there, and having done a company where I was employee number 4 and built the product from the ground up, like, starting from nothing is a lot more satisfying. And the skills you build are a lot more satisfying in doing that, but it's really hard. But if you take that leap and you think about, if you come out the other side with that experience you have, you can do anything. You know, my nephew's at Columbia, and he's interviewing for internships at Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. And I told him, like, you could go work for a Coinbase or a Lyft, and JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs will always hire you because you have this wealth of experience. Whereas if you go to JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs, a Lyft or a Coinbase is probably not going to hire you. And so kind of going forward, you have to think about what you really want to do with your career, what you're passionate about, and what kind of difference you want to make.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Jim. One other question I had, and this might be similar to the first question. It sounds like we've talked on blockchain, we've talked on payments specifically with PayPal's approach. Are there any industries that you see that are still very prone to disruption that maybe fintech companies are just starting to scratch the surface on? I know with personal capital, you know, along with similar companies, massive disruption within kind of traditional wealth management, payments, things of that nature. Are there any industries that you think they're still, you know, just starting to emerge as an opportunity for fintech to disrupt?
Hector,
go ahead.
Hector didn't get to talk on the last one, so I thought we'd let him go.
Yeah, well, I was gonna mention something along the lines of like, yeah, like, thank you, by the way. The point of like, for example, like in the fintech industry, and yes, it's absolutely right that if you start, you know, like at a fintech, like first, and then go like to a big banking industry, it's definitely like gonna resonate on that end. But like for PayPal specifically, you know, like in terms of like the fintech industry and how that, you know, like addresses the end customer at the end of the day, which is like the primary focus for us. We're trying to find ways of incorporating, you know, like alternative solutions for the customers that they're comfortable with using, and how we can leverage, you know, like those opportunities to increase, you know, like our reach, you know, like to all of those customers. One simple example is the startup Honey, which is the one that, you know, I use for like applying coupons like to online shopping. So PayPal recently announced the acquisition of Honey to incorporate, like the whole solution of the PayPal Express cash out opportunity in their websites, and also Izettle, another company that's based in Sweden that focuses on the manufacturing of the point of sale devices that are wireless. So that again, when you're in whatever commerce and you just hover your phone, this device automatically detects your signature and you process a payment. We're using this as another way to offer a solution to the little mom and pop restaurants, the shops that have an ability now so that they can continue thrive in their business. Another thing that we have been doing is to try to enter new markets, right? So we all know that the Chinese market has been somewhat closed in terms of fintech. So we have announced the acquisition of GoPay, which is one of the biggest fintech companies over there in China. And this is a great milestone for us that allows us now to enter the Chinese market and incorporate all of those transactions as well.
Awesome, thank you.
In regards to the question of where there's kind of opportunity for innovation, I think real estate is an asset class that's still ripe for innovation. I think if anyone bought a house 20 years ago and is buying a house today, the experience is not fundamentally different. And considering the size of that asset class, the price for figuring this out and using technology to really innovate and rethink the whole experience is really, really high. There are also a lot of constraints you have to work through. But I think real estate is an area where you can reduce, if you can reduce transaction costs and remove a lot of the friction that's in the experience. I think there is tremendous upside from a valuation perspective.
Yeah, I would agree with kind of mortgage and lending. Figure's doing a lot of interesting things here with blockchain for HELOCs and lending, and trying to kind of disintermediate title companies. It's kind of mortgage and credit, I think, are the two areas where there's lots of opportunity. As a product manager, when I evaluate these things, I'm looking at kind of what are the dreadful experiences that as a consumer you have to go through, and then why do you have those experiences? The credit bureaus are horrible. I paid off a HELOC and my credit score dropped 30 points. I sold a company for $1 billion, so my credit score went down 20 points. You're like, really? And it's that stuff that just makes no sense. So for me, the big three, kind of mortgage, lending, and credit in a bucket, and then kind of identity verification. If you think about friction in transactions, it's who are you? Are you who you say you are? What are the methods used today to verify you are who you say you are? And, I refinanced both my homes a month ago, and they sent a notary to the house where I had to sign documents with my wife for an hour. It literally took an hour, and the stack of documents was 2 inches thick. And it's crazy. And those are the experiences where, as a consumer, you say, how can I make that better? And if I can make that better, what value am I bringing to kind of the large institutional players? And so if you can create disruption there, I think those are huge opportunities.
And one of the questions that we just had come in from the audience was around the real estate specifically. Why do you think it is there has been so little innovation with real estate specifically? And maybe why is that industry lagged behind a lot of the other disruptions with other traditional financial models?
It's really hard. There's not one reason, but I can give you a few examples. One, you have regional MLSs that are gatekeepers for a lot of information. Most real estate transactions on the retail side today go through real estate agents, and if you go through real estate agents, you're just kind of buying into the existing experience, and it comes with a high cost. It's a highly regulated industry, and there are a number of other reasons as well. But there's not going to be a silver bullet here that's going to solve everything for real estate in terms of getting to a better experience. It's going to be a number of different companies that's going to address different issues that then combined, at least this is my view, that then combined is going to create a better experience for the consumer. I think the example Jim gave with Figure is a really great one. Figure is a company that's they're based in San Francisco. They're leveraging blockchain as the kind of underlying technology. I highly recommend everyone, if they have the opportunity, to go through their onboarding experience. It is absolutely incredible when you compare to what you typically have to do for home equity line of credits. It is just such a difference, and they remove so much friction, both in terms of cost and the time involved. It's actually one from a financial services product perspective, one of the products I've been most excited about in the last year.
Great, thank you. And
just to follow up on what Casper said, if you take a look at innovation in like buying and selling real estate, there's been a lot of companies who have tried to kind of disintermediate traditional realtors. If you think about the Bay Area, where you're going to pay $1.5 million for a home, and whoever's selling that is going to pay 6% to a real estate agent, 3% on each side, and houses sell in 3 days. Like, what did that realtor do to earn that kind of money? Really nothing. And so traditional players came in, and said, hey, we're not going to list your house on the MLS. You're going to get no visibility. If you're for sale by owner, you get no visibility, right? So Redfin came along and say, okay, we'll play the traditional game, but we're going to lower our fee on our side. So we're going to squeeze the margin a little bit. And that was kind of acceptable innovation in the space. But the real disruption is, why isn't there a fixed fee for the amount of work that goes into selling a house? And the longer it takes, maybe the more you get paid. And so that's the kind of piece that's like between realtors, title companies, lenders, the way things are traditionally done. Going back to Figure and blockchain, it's like a back door into, like, they're securitizing HELOCs. They're doing it through blockchain. They're disintermediating title companies. Like you have to, in fintech, you have to find what your entry point is. Like, where can you crack that nut and then have a business model that allows you to continue to innovate and fund that innovation.
Thanks for that. And I want to be conscious of our time here. I know we're coming up on the end. And so maybe we could circle back around, and Hector, I'll start with you here. A lot of the individuals watching right now are interested in working in fintech in some capacity. I know it's a fairly broad term. Would there be any advice that you would give in terms of resources to plug into, or just general skill development? I know Fuqua's great and on the cutting edge of a lot of cryptocurrency type classes, but any more broad skills that you would look for in a candidate entering into the fintech world?
Sure thing. So, and actually, thank you for that question, since I think I can talk a little bit about that, since I was able to transition from the construction industry into fintech. So when I was at Fuqua and I did the tech track that enabled us, to go to the Bay Area and visit all of these tech companies, I basically fell in love with the culture and how, you're able to see success stories of a lot of people, transitioning from a completely different background into the tech industry and fintech industry, of course. And one of the things that I recommended, and that I, discovered as I was going through all of the recruiting process, was that you have to leverage the skill set that you acquired before Fuqua. So at the end of the day, when you're applying to as a second year, right, or even as a first year, to summer internship opportunities or full-time experiences, the companies that are going to be looking at you are very focused on matching the role that it's on the job posting site with the skill sets that you have. So whenever you are reaching out to alumni, for example, that's also something really good that you should always, try to do. Reach out to alumni within the fintech companies that you're interested in and ask, based on this, position that I'm looking for, what do you think, or who do you think, I should be able to reach out? And most of the time, an alumni will be able to connect you with someone else that's in that particular space. like an example, like, hey, I want to be a product manager and I don't have any product manager experience. So someone reaches out to me and say, oh yeah, of course. I am not a product manager myself. Like my experience is basically sourcing and procurement, but I nowadays know people within the product management world and PayPal that are good friends of mine, and I can connect these people with and say, hey, this is the starting point that you can leverage and use, like to make sure that that application, that candidacy is very strong. In my particular case, like when I tried to do that, I found it more rewarding in myself to leverage the strategic sourcing and procurement experience that I had at CEMEX before going to Fuqua. And that was basically what attracted my hiring manager in that particular moment in time, that all of this experience, even though beforehand I was applying all of this to negotiate the acquisition of raw materials for cement, and now I'm using those same skills to do negotiations for high technological devices such as servers, routers, like you name it, everything that PayPal uses on their data centers. And the skills are transferable, like at the end of the day. So my recommendation would be, yeah, like tap into your network. Don't be afraid, oh, I don't have any experience and I don't know if I'm going to be a good fit. Don't limit yourself. Don't let you be the judge of that. Let other people, guide you and tell recommendations as to what are the best courses of action and who are the best people that they can connect you with, and leverage on the skill sets that you already have to make that transition. At some point in time, maybe in the future, PayPal, for example, has the product manager bootcamp, which is a thing that they have over the summer, where people that have no product management experience whatsoever, but are interested in entering the world of product management, can apply to and learn. Initially have the exposure to the product management world, meet people from the product management department, and potentially if an opportunity arises, they will have your name on the list and you might be able to transition fully.
Thank you very much for that. Jim, Casper, anything you'd like to add to that?
I can be really quick. First of all, definitely leverage your Fuqua network. But really quickly, I honestly, I try and test more for cultural fit than anything else. I'm less kind of interested in whether or not you're 100% matched with the job description. Other attributes I'm looking for are you intellectually curious? Do you have grit and resilience? And can you adapt? And can you adapt quickly? If you can check those boxes, that's a really good indicator that you'll be successful, not just at Coinbase, but I think at most startups.
Yeah, and what I look for is I'm looking for critical thinking skills. Like a lot of what we do in product, besides user experience, is a lot of A/B testing. Coming up with a hypothesis, testing it, measuring the result, iterating. That's how you drive growth. And so someone that can think critically, look at opportunities, come in with a hypothesis, figure out how to test it in the cheapest, easiest, quickest possible way, and then do as many cycles as you can. That's something that everyone's going to value. And it starts with kind of critical thinking and being able to look at data, analyze opportunities, and then turn things around.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Well, I know you all can't see the faces of the 100+ people that are on the call here, but on behalf of everyone, just want to thank you all for joining the panel and sharing your insights. I found it incredibly interesting and helpful. And hopefully we could have a follow-up conversation at some point down the road. But thank you all for participating today.